Everybody, welcome back. Sorry it's been a little while since I made a video, but I've actually been really busy with work and it's been kind of rough. However, we are talking about our couple of new games and stuff that are going to come to my collection in the future. Ghost of Tsushima. I am officially pre-ordered the big collector's edition, but this game right here and its companions are the ones we're going to talk about. This is the first episode of the PlayStation 5 wish list. Sorry. So occasionally I'll do one that's going to cover both the Switch and ooh, the PS5 and maybe the Xbox Series X if we get to it. But right now, let's hop into Infamous. So as you can see here, I actually have Infamous 2 in actual packaging and all, and this is a nice big game too, by the way. And check this out. You can actually see it's $7.99 at Xeno Records. Believe it or not, that's where I got it. But everything's in here. The art, I mean, look at that. You can actually see the beast too. So this was worth every dollar bill that I paid into it, especially since it was really hard to find. Now you're going to be like, well, this is redundant. But I also have Infamous 1 and 2 right here. This was the only way, by the way, I could get 1 because I've tried finding it by itself and it's just not available. This, if you're wondering why it looks different from that one, these are part of what was known as the PlayStation Collection Series. And really nice series, Infamous 1 and 2. And they also had a code for Festival of Blood. So, great series. Now, what I'm doing with this particular series, because of the purpose of the PS5, is more of games that are deserving to come to the system. We're talking stuff that really does need to be given an overhaul, a refit, basically get the whole best thing. You know, like how what they did with Resident Evil 2 and 3, that kind of stuff. Maybe a remake, remaster, or a total remaster update, like they did with Medieval or the Crash series. These great games that really do need to, in my opinion, get a new coat of paint, overhauls, bug fixes, and let us play them again. And have fun too, by the way. And, you know, not monetize them up to the ass. So, with that being said, we're going to go with the Infamous series to start with. And occasionally I might even pull out, I would like to see a sequel too. And this doesn't have to happen within the first year, it can take a couple. And basically, you know, like, unless the PS4 game really needed an overhaul, I'm just going to say buy the PS4 game and have a physical copy for your PS5. I'm still going to have my pros, so I'm not getting rid of those. I still have my PS3, and I play that from time to time. And in the case of Infamous 2, I gotta have it for that. All right, so let's start with the list. So we're going to cover it in two eras. PlayStation 4, which is Infamous Second Son and First Light, and the PS3 era, the original games 1, 2, and Festival of Blood. And there are three main entries in the series and two side games. I'll get to why I say that in a bit. So let's get to the first game. So in Infamous, you play as Cole McGrath. He is a delivery guy, and he gets this weird delivery, and he goes to the center of his city he lives in, and he's instructed to pull out the package. Well, it turns out to be some kind of superhuman creation bomb, and it detonates before he even understands what's going on, and he's the only survivor with what looks like a small, like 12 block radius or so crater. He's basically lucky to be alive. In fact, he's burned, he's bleeding. You literally see this guy with like clothing hanging. That's how good they did the story, and he manages to just barely get out and get to help. And as he starts to recover pretty quickly too, he starts to develop powers. Now his powers do have weaknesses. You know, they have those catch-22s, so it's really a cool thing. And as the game is called Infamous, you have the option of either playing the hero or playing the villain. Really nice setup with that regard. It's based on your karma system, the decisions you make. And I've seen a lot of people not really want to play the evil path. I know I don't personally. I get into it a little bit for a couple of trophies, but I'm really not all that interested. I know I'm never going to get the platinum on these games, but I just play it because they're fun. Um, And the first game had such a major storyline. This whole city that's been quarantined because of these, they're called conduits that are running around, and you don't know what's going on. And the game has this great ending. It's like, whoa, what the hell did I just watch? And it all comes down to this villain. Who is he, and what connection does he have to Cole? And yes, there is a connection. That's about the only spoiler I'm going to give. So then you go to Infamous 2, and I'm going to cover the games real quick before I get into a couple of nitpicks and why I really want them to get remastered. And in Infamous 2, it's set about a couple of months later, and this thing called the Beast, which was one of the big surprises at the end of the game, the first game, is on its way to your city. And Cole is trying to evacuate people into this ship. You have this government person who's actually going against orders to help you, and you're going to this city called New Moraeus to find this scientist who's got a way to stop this thing. And you get your butt kicked. But you actually do hurt it. You do hurt it, you do slow it down, but eventually it kicks your butt and it destroys your whole city. And you actually see as the game progresses this swath from where the city is, which is like supposed to be New York. They're not really called that. All the way down to where you are in New Moraeus, which is sort of a New Orleans. And once you arrive, you realize there are conduits everywhere. There's all kinds of people. There's a militia trying to kill you. It just keeps getting better. The game really upped the ante. And I mean really. When you get to the end of the game, you're going to understand what I mean by up the ante, and also just how serious those karma choices are going to be. I'm not kidding. You're going to have some serious karma choices with this game. 2 was great for that. Now for the first, and 2 has that karma system. So, and then we have the one sort of side game, the offshoot games, and that's called Festival of Blood. And this was basically a download game. It's not as big. It's actually pretty small. It's one little part of New Moraeus' map, and it's all about vampires, believe it or not. Cole gets turned into a vampire, and you have one night to save yourself before you become a member of the undead. And it's an insane little game, and I actually had a lot of fun with it. I don't know if you could beat it in one day. I was actually having a lot of fun and was exploring everything, and I still haven't even gotten all the trophies for it. I have to re-download it on the PS3 so I can play it again. But it's a fun game. It was insane, and it was cool, and these are M-rated games, by the way, too. I mean, well, actually they're teen, but I thought they were M. I mean, especially, I think Festival of Blood is an M-rated game because vampires, people are, I mean, you are literally sucking people dry of blood. There's a couple of times you're going to see it happen. You're going to see people just getting, sucked on. It's pretty bad. Then we're going to move right into the PlayStation 4 era, and the third main entry game was Second Son, and this is set years later. I mean, we're talking, I think, like almost a decade later, and this time it's actually set in and around Seattle, Washington. You first start with a guy named Delson Rowe, who I believe is a member of the Akumish tribe of, Washington Native Americans, and he discovers he's a conduit. When this truck crashes, these conduits are escaping from government imprisonment, and he gets powers. He finds out he can siphon the powers off of what are called prime conduits. These are the original power holders. Some conduits are actually having powers put into them from another conduit. And he basically, Delson, he goes through hell. I mean, this poor guy watches his tribe get hurt. He's a bit of a troublemaker. His brother is, in fact, the sheriff. But he now has to make the decision to try to save them. And, again, there's the whole karma system. You can be the worst human being possible with powers, or you can be the best human being with powers. And that's how the game is really set up. And it had a great set of good stories. I mean, and you see the trailers, and you have to realize these were real actors playing these roles for the motion capture. The game is all live action, all in-game graphics, and it just looks great. And when I first got the game and looked at the size, I was actually surprised it wasn't that big. It was like maybe 23 gigabytes in size. I think now it might be close to 25 because they did give it some PS4 Pro upgrades, but it's not much. it's a small game in comparison to like a 50 gig to 100 gig game of our present generation. And this was a first year PlayStation 4 game, literally first year. So it's not a young game anymore. And I believe a couple of years later, First Light finally came out, which was a both kind of a prequel to Second Son and also a side story which followed one of the characters. I believe her name was Batch. She had this incredible light power. It's one of my favorites in the game to use. And she has a really heartbreaking story in the game. I mean, you would have to play the game both First Light and Second Son to get it. That game really didn't have a karma system because, again, it's an offshoot game. So right there, you get a lot of stuff going on. Now let's cover my thoughts on these two games and these 5 games and why I think they could go into a good a good collection for the PS5 as sort of a collector's thing. Give us updated games. But I understand why we might not. Let's start with 1. I gotta say this now. 1 looks like a PS2 game. I'm not kidding on this one. It looks like a PS2 game. They got a good overhaul and put onto the PS3. There are certain things that still feel very PS2, but given the overall power of the PS3, it suddenly looks and runs a lot better. And it does have I would say, a slightly better frame rate. At least that's what it feels like to me than, say, 2 does. But 2 is very stable. The game, it hasn't aged well in that respect, but it's still incredible to look at. It's still shocking. It's still fun. And I would like to see the game get a nice overhaul, maybe a nice graphical overhaul, really give it that extra, oomph and stuff. It's really the only one I think would really need a super overhaul. The other ones would just need, maybe a little tweaks here and there, give them the 60 frame rate, but this one really would need the love. It's just because it's the oldest one. And I don't remember the exact time of 1's release, but I do know it was like within the first 3 years or 4. So, and PlayStation 3 went for quite a while, so did 4. So it makes sense. 2, however, as you can see from the box art, got a serious overhaul. I mean, that is actually, to a small degree, as you can see, just barely make out. That's pretty close to the graphics. I mean, that's how good it is. The quality is just incredible. I look at the 2 games and they're like night and day. Although I have to admit, the bigger the TV that I put this particular game on, the more the graphics do break down. But that happened with a whole lot of PS3 games. It's just, 720p resolution and stuff. It had its limits. But damn, even still, even on those big TVs where it does break down a little bit, it still looks better than anything I've seen in most other games. I mean, it still holds up pretty well. And the same is true with Festival of Blood. They have a great stable frame rate. They're not small games, by the way. I mean, they are more than 8 gigs in size, and I'm actually still surprised about that sometimes. They are great games. I would love to see them get remastered, all 3 of these. And the PS3 games, they really do need it. I would love to see them come back. Now let's talk about Second Son and First Light. However, with these 2, they are PlayStation 4 games. They have received minor updates from time to time for the Pro. But I do feel that if you're going to do a collection like this, throw them in as well, give them some overhauls, and then give us some, some extra content, like interviews and stuff. Talk with the people who did the voice acting and stuff. And that sort of thing. Give it a good overhaul. And really do stuff. I mean, this collection that I had here for the game, this 2-disc set right here. This was like a little series they were doing. I remember they had God of War. I believe they had Ratchet and Clank, and I forget the other series. God, I can't remember it. It's the one with the little Jackson Dexter. There it is. And I think also Sly Cooper, which remember is also a Sucker Punch game. So yeah, it would be nice to have this series for the PS5. And in the case of 1 and hopefully First Light, we can play that on the PS5 and they will be a much better experience. You can still put them on your Pro or your normal PlayStation 4 and they're going to look great. And, you gotta love it. I would love to see these games get their nice overhaul. I would love to see them come and be just really given a nice overhaul. And with these new generation consoles, a lot of these games might actually be getting that. Now, I also understand we can bring a good chunk of our profile over, but remember that in the case of the PS4, it really has been confirmed that while it has modding capacities for 1, 2, and 3, it's really geared towards the Pro, the PS4 and the backwards compartment. But to be fair, I'm looking at it right now, and my library is just freaking huge. So that's not a problem for me. In fact, I kind of like it. I have to get some more games again, even though I have digital copies, because now I want a physical copy, especially of certain games that are in their Ultimate Collection forms. So I need to start buying again. I finally have a reason to go to GameStop again, besides paying off my pre-orders, which is a lot, from everything from Doom to Final Fantasy, Ghost of Tsushima, Maneater. Oh my god, I can't remember everything. I have so much. So yeah, that's pretty good. I wish this video was a little shorter, guys. I'm sorry for that, but I really did need to cover this game series and just how much fun and how good it is. If you can find it and you have a working PS3, or you can get your hands on First Light or Second Son, and by the way, they are greatest hits, so they're going to be $20 or $10 or so on the PlayStation Store. Buy them, play them, see what you think, and tell me what you think. Tell me how you like it, because I just like the games. They're funny, they're great. They have a great deal of replay value, even for not looking the best. So tell me what you think. Hit your like buttons, subscribe, and also, just give me your own opinion. Give your own little thoughts on the games too in the comments below. And I'll see you guys later.